Through 6.5 years running this channel, I've now reviewed 11 seasons of Survivor, and before I get to the next one, I figured why not bundle up all my thoughts into a nice little video and sort of sum up where I'm at right now, going all the way back to where I first began. Internets, from heroes, healers, hustlers back in 2017, all the way up to season 45 in 2023. Here are my rankings of all the Survivor seasons I've reviewed on my channel. Believe it or not, I have never actually ranked all the Survivor seasons in a video. I have gone on other channels' podcasts and talked about my rankings, but then also my thoughts change a lot and my rankings shift every so often, and we're currently talking about 45 seasons to sift through, so it's just a lot to cover. One day I will sit down and rank every season, but right now I want to just talk about the 11 seasons that I have made full-fledged review videos about to organize how I feel about everything I've watched since starting my channel. I'll be covering the 11 seasons from 35 to 45 here, and I can say that at least one of these seasons is in my overall top 10, and a few of them are in my overall bottom 10. So let's talk about number 11 out of 11. My least favorite season since I began hitting that record button. I think most fans are gonna know my bottom two, and it's just a matter of which is where. But I guess it's time for a blindside because at number 11, I have season 36. Ghost Island. I really don't care for this season as its editing is horrible. It's the worst edited season of the 11 in this video. It basically focuses on 3 to 4 players out of a cast of 20, and it's really just the Dom and Wendell show start to finish. Chris Noble is the merge boot who gets some wacky screen time, and I love how much the show dunks on him, and then you get Michael as the vanilla underdog who doesn't effectively do anything because the rest of the cast just falls in line to roll out the red carpet for the final two. It is a frustrating steamroll where Kellen, Donathan, Laurel, and just pretty much everyone else just wait for their turn to lose. It also holds the fun distinction of being the first season review and also video on my channel to get outright blocked, which was also the video that gave me the biggest scare of my entire channel's history, where I thought that everything was just totally doomed. I actually had to re-upload it a year later after I think CBS stopped caring, but hey, I didn't care for the season much then either, and not much has changed since then. And I guess for the record, I should just say I do like Dom and Wendell, and what they pulled off is really impressive, but there just wasn't much suspense or intrigue, and the twist of Ghost Island itself really just wasn't much to write home about. Which leads me to number 10, and yeah, it's season 39, Island of the Idols. The epitome of the phrase, had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Because unlike Ghost Island, the first half of this season is actually pretty good, and it's fun and has some big moments, some blindsides, and for a minute had me thinking it would lead to greater things. The first half carries this season, although clearly not enough, as it's still at number 10 and in my overall bottom 10 seasons out of all 45. My least favorite episode in Survivor history out of the 600 or 700 that have ever aired is the merge vote doubleheader, where we get 2 hours of Kelly and Jamal getting voted out, and Janet is weirdly turned into a pariah, and really, like, what needs to be said there? The Dan and Kelly debacle is just all over the place. It's a massive headache. It puts an awkward dark cloud over the post-merge that seemingly isn't even acknowledged much until randomly Dan is just plucked out of the season at the final 6. And it's a season heavily overloaded with twists, as the Island of the Idols is all about giving 2 Survivor NPCs, Rob and Sandra, screen time despite them not really meaning much to the overall outcome, or even the winner, who never even goes to the Island of the Idols at all. The first half is fun, but it's just not enough to mean much when the second half betrays it and sinks it to the bottom. And it's kind of funny because I very much think that both of these seasons are worse than any New Era season, but I also hear a lot of complaints about the New Era not being as good as the seasons that came before it. That being said, number 9 is the first New Era season, and for me, it's going to be Survivor 41. After a 1.5-year hiatus, Survivor returned in 2021 and emerged from the Fijian jungle like a monster ready to just jam-pack every episode full of stuff to the point where it was just a little too much. The overabundance and reliance on advantages and twists with 41 every episode set the tone right away, and to me produced some of the worst episodes in Survivor, as a lot of time was spent just explaining what the hell the rules to the game even were. With Beware advantages, Ship Wheel Island, Earn the Merge, Lost Votes, the Hourglass, Do or Die, Knowledge is Power, and God, whatever else. It felt like the producers were more interested in having things to feature every episode, and the cast just kind of happened to be there at the time. I also thought the editing left a lot to be desired, as it barely focused on the dominant Luvu tribe, with the winner, Erica, being mostly hidden for half the season, as well as her strategy and relationships in favor of all these shiny new toys taking center stage. I still do love the drama, and I think that when people talk about people wanting bitter Survivor and sore losers, you can just look up Survivor 41. It's a pretty rough season to watch, and in a way, I do appreciate that. But in hindsight, I have trouble co-signing what this season introduces, and I'm glad future seasons steer a bit further from its stuff to the brim formula, because otherwise, I think it's a pretty strong cast with some players I would love to see return. Number 8 is my second New Era season, and it is Survivor 43. And first things first, Gabler winning is probably the most shocked I've ever been from a winner reveal in 45 seasons. It's that deep. And look, you know what? From a meta perspective, I will take a shocking reveal any day of the week, even if it means some of my favorites lose in the process. Talk about subverting expectations. 43 was overall, I think, a middling season where, on a production level, I believe trended in the right direction. After 41 and 42 had all of these awful twists and focused a lot on them, 43 toned it down a lot and let the players breathe a little more. You had the antics of the Red Tribe with Jesse and Cody, Dwight and Noel. You had Coco with Cassidy and Carla, who began as allies but ultimately turned into frenemies. And you had Baca, who were just that. A hot mess. Gabler versus Ellie took over half the season. It was great. Owen being the Charlie Brown who couldn't get anything right, and Sammy, who was totally not a teenager. Why would you ask that? The Ellie vote at the merge was great. The James versus Owen rivalry was pretty good, but far and away, the best episode is the final 6 when Jesse takes out Cody. And now that I think about it, this season is kind of like a much better version of Ghost Island in a way, except neither Dom nor Wendell win, and instead, Seabass wins. I don't know, but I think its critics are more upset at the final outcome when really it's not just about the destination, and I don't think the journey to get there is half bad. At number 7, I have the season that started it all. It is season 35, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. Man, is that a mouthful. And okay, so about that destination. I swear I don't have a thing against seasons with winners from Idaho, while I do think this season is generally underrated by most fans, as they tend to overlook the fun parts in the pre-merge and the early merge, only to instead focus on the twisty ending. I feel like it's one of those seasons that holds up better on a rewatch, where you might not be blindsided by a random twist at the last second. For those who are rooting for Ben and love the fire-making twist, you probably don't even care anyway, but personally, I hated it. I still would rather a vote be in place, but as I said in my twist tier list video, it does have some upsides too, and I am willing to concede that it's not the worst thing ever. I do think it's a shame much of this season is overshadowed by the finale and really just the final 4 twist, because the cast isn't half bad. You got a fun swap with Joe's idol play, the post-merge to some exciting episodes with some great moves like JP's blindside, Joe's comeuppance, the idol scramble at the tribe flag, Ben going undercover, Chrissy becoming a villain, and Devin's final 5 defensive play that's one of my favorites ever. Also, the first Ben bomb at the final 7 tribal is wild. But yeah, even though I'm justifying why it's not in my bottom 4 with all of these good moments to focus on, the season is overall still somewhat low in my eyes. It doesn't stick the landing at all. The reunion show is probably the worst ever, which yes, I do include, and I'm not a big fan of what the season devolves into, where it's just about finding the Easter egg hidden in the jungle. And now with HHH in the rearview mirror, there's nowhere to go but forward. We're now in the middle of my ranking with a season that isn't in the top half nor in the bottom. It's just in the middle, as I'm equally in favor of it and against some of it too. And that is season 38, Edge of Extinction, which is amusingly, I think, turning into one of those seasons where the online fan base thinks that it's like really underrated. And I guess I can see why. It's a bit of a shit show season where the rules are made up and the results don't really matter. A lot of the episodes feature some bad gameplay, especially in the post-merge, where events suddenly devolve into live tribals or allies blindsiding each other, or Rick Devens yet again finding a way to be safe. You had Big Wendy all over the pre-merge stealing stuff, Aubrey getting devastated in a blindside, and Reem one of the more iconic first boots we've ever seen. We also had 4 returning players with Kelly, David, Joe, and Aubrey, who I don't really think added that much to the season outside of maybe Wentworth, who did kind of turn into a villain. And then we get the big twist of it all, the Edge, a loser's bracket version of Survivor where not much happened. We got a lot of zoomed in shots of people's pores. That being said, I do think a lot of the season is fun at face value, which is why I have it in the middle, but it's not higher because the Edge, for me, kinda just ruins a lot of it. It doesn't need to exist. I wish it never did. And yeah, I would trade a late game Devens run for it to go away. Chris just isn't compelling enough of a winner, in the edit at least, to make it worth it, especially when you realize he had the game served to him on a silver platter upon his return. All the jurors had a master plan on what needed to be done. Chris just happened to get to execute it because he sunk his ball first, and while he did it really well and it's a really fun finale, I guess we were this close to Joe Anglim doing it, it's also almost an entirely different season for that one episode. In the scheme of Survivor, I can see trying a Loser's Lodge Island twist for a season or two, but 42-minute episodes can barely accommodate it as is, and I'd rather just stick to vote outs actually having an impact every episode. And if you're keeping up with what seasons are left in my ranking at this point, you might be a little bit shocked to find out that 3 of my top 5 right now are from the new era. Which again, I think some fans might find to be pretty shocking, but I would argue it's just more a case of the quality of the previous era with rose-tinted glasses. Or just maybe different strokes. My number 5 and number 4 are both going to be new era seasons, and those are season 42 and 44, with 44 actually being a bit higher than 42. My biggest drawback for 42 is how it copies the formula of 41, but it isn't as rough around the edges, but I don't care for the hourglass or do or die, or how the show still feels overly stuffed with shiny new toys each week. I like the 42 cast a lot, and it has some great moments throughout the season, the highlight of the pre-merge being the Daniel vote out, and then we get the excellent gameplay from the Taku 4 Alliance, with Omer in particular serving up a great display of new era dominance. There are a handful of compelling eliminations, such as the high blindside, the Drea blindside where she has so many advantages to her name, and especially the Omer blindside at the final 6. Another great final 6 episode where the winner takes the reins at the very end. I'm a big fan of Marianne too, and I also liked Mike, who got runner-up. I think overall it's a good season, and I can see why some people say it's their favorite of the new era, but I almost wish it happened a few years later without all the twists. And then we have 44, which also has a good cast, similar to the Taku 4 with the Tika 3. Jam Jam, Carolyn, and Carson were the underdogs who swept the post-merge, and I enjoyed watching them do it. It's kind of like a new era Tocantins, except that I think the rest of the cast on 44 somewhat paled in comparison to the Tika 3's characterization, but I still enjoyed the drama and the gameplay. You've got the Danny blindside, you've got the idol play to save Franny, or how Matt left his bag and was just tragically executed in front of her. That's a bit dramatic, but it's one of the more compelling votes in a while. Jam Jam is a great winner with such a sense of humor. He stole every scene and confessional, and then you get Carolyn, who I personally liked a lot. One of the most unique players in a long time. She was brimming with oddball behavior, and I am just the kind of person to appreciate it. I think overall 44 is a fun, lighthearted season where if you don't take the show too seriously, you'll probably love it. So my top 3 are clearly season 37, David vs. Goliath, season 40, Winners at War, and season 45. And I think that the way this ranking is going to break down, instead of getting to number 3, I'm going to talk about the obvious and say that my number 1 here is David vs. Goliath, a season that is in my overall top 10 of all 45 seasons because it is a great season top to bottom. And I mean, like, what is it that I need to say? It's pretty much got something for everyone. It's the best, newest season to date. I'm sure everyone has heard me talk about it a bunch, and if not me, then everyone else on the internet. The cast is fantastic, the drama is up there, the humor is top-notch, the gameplay is just all over the place in a good way. The events that unfold lead to a roller coaster ride from episode 1 with the medevac to the finale. And honestly, I would say the least exciting part is actually the finale, where Mike kind of rolls over and lets Nick take the win from him. But otherwise, you've got the Jessica blindside, the Jeremy blindside, the Natalie Cole of it all with her jacket, you got the Natalia boot, the Merge boot, the Brochacho minority split vote from the Davids, you've got Dan going with his idols, the Carl boot episode and his drunkenness. Christian is one of my favorite players of all time. Gabby is fantastic, Davey and Slamtown, man, it's all gravy. It's clearly number one here, with my only complaint being how the apex of the season revolves around the Davids relying on a bunch of trinkets and advantages, and the idol nullifier in particular being pretty lame. Which means number 2 and 3 are Winners at War and 45. The most recent season I reviewed as of this video. And you know, I'm pretty conflicted here because on one hand, Winners at War is a nostalgia kick of a lifetime. 20 winners, one stage, final destination, duking it out. It is insane. For a Survivor buff like myself, who's devoted so much of my time to this show for the past 15 years now, it's tough to not let the bias just wash over me. I kind of feel like, in a way, it was just gonna be a banger season for me no matter what. And then you get Tony winning it with some of the most impressive gameplay, particularly the Sophie blindside, and I am here for it. I loved a lot of the winners and how there were a lot of callbacks to previous seasons, how the show really glorified these people for being there. They respected the history, they honored them for their personas, and capped off many legacies from decades past. On the flip side, the boot order left something to be desired, an unfortunate side effect of All-Star seasons, and the Edge of Extinction returned despite the season not being 90-minute episodes like it needed to be. The episodes this season felt stuffed, and it gave me a sense of wanting and needing more, and sometimes I wasn't satisfied watching the episodes even after devouring all the secret scenes online. I didn't really care for the Edge yet again, although it did give us more time with the winners and their shenanigans. I would also argue losing them is just a part of the experience of Survivor, and we didn't need the twist back. None of the winners wanted it back, and it really wasn't needed in the end, and I think that it brings the season down a good bit. Which I think, after talking to myself a little bit about this, I think it's why I'm gonna put Survivor 45 at number 2 out of these 11, and season 40 at number 3. This might be recency bias because I did enjoy 45 quite a bit, but 45 has been my favorite new era season as it focused so much more on the people and less on the advantages and the twists. The game felt down to earth, I liked the cast more, and it had some fantastic episodes from start to finish, the strongest start to a season in a while for newbies. The swap returned and didn't overstay its welcome, the auction returned and I liked it, and there were some juicy vote outs all season. The Caleb shot in the dark and subsequent loss, the Kelly blindside, the Bruce blindside, the Emily idol blindside, the Drew debacle, and holy crap, the final 5 vote is one of my favorite votes ever. What a shit show, I loved it. It reminded me a lot of my other favorite seasons, and maybe it's recency bias, but you know, hey, maybe in another 11 seasons I will come back to this video and find myself agreeing with myself still. Or not. Maybe I'll cringe. Only time will tell. So that is going to be my ranking of all the Survivor seasons I have reviewed since I started my channel. What do you think? Do you agree with my rankings? Disagree? A little of both? How would you rank these 11 seasons? A big thanks to my patrons for being here for over half of these seasons now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to remind yourself where you've been on your way out, and I will see you in the next one once I figure out where I'm going next.
As one season comes to an end, another begins. Here is your first look at Survivor 46.
I'm gonna be on that show one day. I'm gonna do it.
Oh, there we are.
What's happening, baby?
Good morning, sir.
See y'all soon. What the hell is this?
I'm going to be the very first Persian winner of Survivor because, honey, it is long overdue.
I'm here doing it. I'm doing it.
We're doing it!
Survivor 46.
Whoa! Sorry. Whoa.